TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zyman, your State Farm insurance agent. Scott can help you save money bundling your home and auto insurance. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zyman and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. For delivery or pickup, call 815-758-8116 or go to pizzavilla.com. My Insurance Guys in Sycamore, family owned, local, reliable. My Insurance Guys cover Medicare to auto and everything in between. Call us in Sycamore at 815-899-0950. My Insurance Guy, business, auto, home, life, and health at myinsuranceguy.com. And Eldercare Services of DeKalb County, safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay at home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. Well, good morning and welcome to TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 19. Honored and privileged to have with us a legend in the area, on the radio, and just in the community in general. Dave Bavido. Dave, how you doing, my friend?
Hey there, TD. How are you?
How about you? I mean, I think we got about, 50, 60 years of radio between the two of us, and we're both working for the Park District right now.
That's right. As a matter of fact, after 45 years doing radio, the next logical choice was to go work for the Park District.
Well, it seems to be, for both of us, we got that. But we're going to talk about the history of Cornfest music. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Cornfest. For instance, Dave, did you know that the native peoples of Mesoamerica, corn was considered a sacred grain, a gift from the gods, and a source of life? Maize was more than just a staple food, but helped to form rich spiritual and cultural identity that lives on to this day.
Well, here's what I want to know. How did we go from maize to corn? It's not even close, the word.
Right. That's a great...
How did we go from maize to corn?
Well, I can tell you, corn was first domesticated by native people in southern Mexico about 10,000 years ago, my most widely distributed crop in the modern day, and some say it's one of the most important vegetables in the United States.
Well, I'll tell you what, they probably should have renamed it Maize Fest.
I like that.
Cornfest.
That's got a nice ring to it. And I was looking up the history of the Cornfest. We're going to be talking about the music, as Dave was very instrumental, no pun intended, about that. But Dave, the thing I found, the Cornfest began in 1947 as a small neighborhood gathering with a square dancing, bingo, and of course buttered corn. Since then, it's grown to one of the Lions Club's biggest events and fundraisers, drawing thousands of visitors for weekend fun, food, and memory. So 47, they had to start here.
Yeah, from what I recall, I first got involved with the Cornfest back in about late 86, 87 for the festival for that summer of 1987. So that's when I first started getting involved with it, learned some things. I was the program director of WDEK radio at the time. That's how I got involved to begin with. And I was told back in 1987 that we were already into the 25th anniversary year.
You have a T-shirt to prove it, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not quite sure of the exact start date, but I know it started as a corn boil. It started as a way for the community and the university to get together the last weekend of August before the school started. And it was just a way to get NIU and the community together in a festival partying kind of an atmosphere. It was mostly a corn boil with Del Monte.
Del Monte, right? The key there. Uh-huh.
And how it, evolved over the last 30, 40 years into what it is today. Started from simply boiling some corn and giving it away to people from Del Monte.
And of course, we named that now the Chuck Seabrass Corn Boil, and Chuck, just a legend in the area, just a tremendous individual. Boy, talking to Chuck about his time in Vietnam, he was a medic in Vietnam, and boy, just incredible stories, the stuff he went through, and then coming back and starting a newspaper with his wife, and just a great guy.
Yeah, and appropriately named for the corn boil, because he really put in his time. I was a board member on there for about 10 years or so.
Okay.
And I worked with Chuck on a daily basis as the summer progressed, and no one worked harder than Chuck.
I love it. Very well put there. And so in 77 is when the music started. As a matter of fact, I was reading the Kishwaukee barbershop quartet, who I interviewed on WLBK, was one of the first music groups, I guess.
Right.
Reminds me of Up With People with the halftime show at the Super Bowl.
No, what's interesting is, again, the live music portion of the festival was just Saturday and Sunday. And we had to be done by 6 p.m. on each one of those days. By Sunday, 6 o'clock at night, the Department of Transportation needed Lincoln Highway open again for regular traffic. So we only had music till 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. But then John Smith from the Shenanigans, I believe he's the one that suggested, why don't we do a Friday night thing that's not like the rock music or the jazz or the blues, but why don't we do something for, the seniors in the audience, the older crowd. So Friday night became big band night, and John Smith and his Shenanigans band played an integral part in getting that Friday night idea of, hey, we can go to Cornfest on Friday night and not have to wait till Saturday. So that started with John and the Shenanigans, and that turned out really well.
Now, I see here that you mentioned it, NIU used to be in charge of the music, right? Now, before you took over.
Right. When I took over, there was a guy who worked at Northern. His name was Steve Ducrow, and he pretty much took me under his wings. And he was, I don't know if he was the head of the concert committee at Northern, but he had something to do with the concert committee. And they put him in charge year after year of getting the stage put together, because NIU had a stage in storage that they pulled out. So that's how he got involved. And then...
Now, we should point out the stage used to be, over on First Street, First in Lincoln Highway?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, the very first year I was there, the stage, now to see if you can picture this, those of us that are from DeKalb can put this in their heads. Next to the Egyptian Theater in the alleyway between the Hillside Restaurant and the Egyptian, on the side of the Egyptian Theater was a little cement platform about 6 inches up off the ground. And it was maybe a 10-foot by 10-foot platform. And that's where the Egyptian Theater would put their garbage cans and dumpsters and everything. That was their area. But for Cornfest, they cleared the dumpsters out, and that was the original soundstage.
Are you
6-inch tall slab of concrete that faced the back of the stores that would be facing Lincoln Highway, in that alleyway there. And that was the soundstage, and that was the whole beer garden between First and Second.
Is that right?
In between the Hillside and the Egyptian. That was the entire beer garden and stage.
Wow.
A year or two after that, then, we moved the stage out in front of the Egyptian Theater. Then the stage eventually moved to the northeast corner of the parking lot across from the Egyptian Theater. And then finally, towards the last 5 or 6 years of my reign there, we moved it out into the street on Locust.
Okay.
Directly in the street, facing south. This stage would be facing south, so that the entire parking lot became the beer garden area.
Yeah.
And had tremendous success bringing bands in and having huge crowds.
Well, let's go through those bands. Now, you took over in 1986. One of the bands that jumps out of me, Jump in the Saddle Band. When I was a mobile DJ, I used to play the Curly Shuffle. Big hit, and so you managed to hit them. And then some great names, Johnny Bounce and the Bad Checks, and Tools of Romance. That was all in 1985, huh? So
that was just a book. Right, that was just before I started. My first year, we had the DeKalb Foot Stomper. Of course, you got to have the DeKalb Foot Stomper. Mr. Myers was a perennial favorite.
The reggae man.
He loved the reggae. Jim Canis, he's a local guy that had a trio and performed acoustic music. Of course, Cornfest was always big on blues acts. The blues.
Well, Coco Taylor, right?
Coco Taylor played 2 or 3 times, and she never even wanted to get off the stage. We had to be done by 6 o'clock, and it would be rolling around, and she just didn't want to get off. She didn't want to get off the stage. So
the main act would play on Sunday then? What was
we had 2 main acts. There was a main act for Saturday and a main act for Sunday. Again, when I took over, we didn't have many national acts doing it. It was mostly local, regional bar bands that are looking for exposure.
Which a lot of us respect, but then, their shtick, their routine, and you had to see some fresh meat.
Right. And then somehow, some way, I don't know, unbeknownst to me, the Cornfest committee managed to find a little more money, and we started getting bigger acts to come in.
Yeah, we'll talk about this. You were just telling me off the air the story about the Hispanic Boys, if you remember them. They played in 1990. And a little story about Saturday Night Live, right?
Right. The only reason we got the Hispanic Boys was because they were the band that replaced Sinead O'Connor on the...
When she ripped up the picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live?
Exactly. And so they wouldn't let her perform. I guess she was scheduled for like a
second song.
A second one.
Yeah.
And the Hispanic Boys, they were there. Milwaukee.
They were there on call then, huh?
I'm not sure how that went down, but they got on the air instead of Sinead, and they were fantastic. People loved them. And so I got them to come in, and we had them for Cornfest, and everyone knew who they were.
Yeah.
Simply because of the Saturday Night Live.
Do you remember, this is years ago, but did they make a reference to Saturday Night Live?
I don't believe they did. No, I don't believe they did.
Serve a picture of the mayor.
They were very well received. They were originally there was a father and son band, Hispanic, out of Milwaukee, and they were very good. So we were happy to have them. But one year we had a complete on Saturday. One of the things that Steve Ducro, my mentor, taught me when I took this thing over was that forget about who you like personally. What we're trying to do here at Cornfest is bring in a wide variety of music so everyone has a little something to listen to.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So he always said, get one or two rock acts in there, but always have a blues band, a jazz band, a country band, a reggae band. Get the full variety of music so that if you don't like one, if you don't like the reggae, but you like the blues, you'll come back later in the day to hear the blues band.
Right, yeah.
So one day, we had on Saturday, we did an entire blues day. We started off with Lynn Jordan and the Shivers, Big Daddy Kinsey and the Kinsey Report, then Coco Taylor and her Blues Machine, and then finally at 6 o'clock we had Otis Rush.
Oh, wow.
Come take on. So...
What a show that must have been.
Yeah. I mean, those are, Coco Taylor, Otis Rush, and then that was for Saturday. But then on Sunday, we just had two bands. One of my all-time favorites, one that I remember as a teenager, Leon Russell. I got to hire Leon Russell. On the tide roll.
There you go.
One side's faith and one is hope. And the Marshall Tucker Band played that.
Oh, wow.
So Marshall Tucker and Leon Russell played on that Sunday.
That's it. Wow, both of them. Holy cow.
Yeah, so that was a really special day for the Cornfest.
And I should point out, Dave has the old posters. Man, those are cool. It's the coloring on those, and of course the sponsorship there. You had Caesar's Pizza was on the one, and the other one
and here's one that says we got Sun Seals headlining on a Saturday one year. For jazz, we had, believe it or not, the immortal Maynard Ferguson.
Oh, wow.
Who was one of the biggest jazz. It wasn't like a jazz rock progressive guy. He was an original jazz guy from like the 50s.
Yeah.
He played with us. So Maynard Ferguson and his band came and played one year. I'm trying to look.
Now, it's funny, while you're looking for that, I was thinking the other day about the term heavy metal, and I was listening to an old Steppenwolf tape, and of course, the Born to Be Wild, he says heavy metal thunder. Do we know, is that where that came from? Is that where heavy metal came from?
It might be. That I'm not sure. I didn't get much of a chance to talk to John, but...
How did you get them booked?
Well, that's an interesting story behind that, because what happened was, that was the year, I believe it was 94, maybe?
It says notable acts from the 90s, yes, it doesn't say...
So I think it was whenever Los Angeles had the big riots, with Rodney King and all of that, and L.A. was burning. Well, his management, John K. Steppenwolf's management in L.A., his whole career, 40, 50 years worth, they were freaking out a little bit because the city was literally burning to the ground. So I made I made a real lowball offer, and they took it. And,
really? So you didn't really expect them to take it?
Because it was so low, but they wanted to get out of L.A., get away from that area. And for some way, they were routing through our area that day, and for about $5,000, I got Steppenwolf to play.
Okay. Did they kind of just phone it in? Do you remember, or were they?
No, they were great. To this day, people still tell me that Steppenwolf show was the best Cornfest act ever.
We're talking about the history of Cornfest music here with Dave Bavido, legend locally here. Now, Dave, one of the other groups I saw was Greg Kinn. I always think of Weird Al Yankovic. I Lost on Jeopardy. Baby. Of course, his song was Jeopardy, big hit for him.
Right.
What was that like? Because Greg was pretty popular at the time you got him a count.
Right. Greg Kinn was, he had 2 or 3 top 40 hits.
Yeah, it wasn't just that one. That's why I just thought it. Yeah.
And here's the funny, I'll tell you, I got a million little funny stories about a lot of these bands. So I had a bunch, I contacted Greg Kinn's record company and had, send me 20 CDs. I'm going to have them sign them, and then we're going to give them away on the radio station, signed Greg Kinn CDs. Okay, so they sent me 20 CDs. So now I'm in, we didn't have a dressing room per se, but we had like a RV mobile trailer, bus kind of thing. So him and I are sitting at the kitchen table, and he's signing all these CDs. And at that time, for some reason, I don't know why, but I was into fountain pens. Fountain pens had made a comeback.
I love fountain pens. I still
put the little ink cartridge in there.
Yeah.
So he's telling me these stories, these crazy stories of him on the road while he's signing this. And while he's signing them, he's moving his hands, and the ink starts flying all over. And he's in the clothes he's going to wear to perform. He's in his performance clothes. And I had to stop. The other thing that worried me was I had that bus, that RV bus, on loan from an RV company, and they said, if this comes back no good, you guys are buying this RV. So here he is talking to me, and he doesn't even notice.
Greg stopped gesturing.
And he ended up just covered in ink. But he went out in that shirt and performed. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What a trooper. And then we have Jefferson Starship. Now that's without Grace Slick, which he probably wasn't. But I don't know. I always assumed Grace Slick was a trouble person to work with. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe
yeah. No. Well, she was not there. But Marty Balin and Paul Kantner were there. So
now, how'd you get them? How did you get them? Another major.
I talked to all of these people. Have agents, and I had a list of a bunch of agencies. And there was a one gentleman by the name of, I believe his name was Jim Lenz, worked at an agency in California. And he had said, hey, I'm routing Starship through your area. And usually the Cornfest, we get everyone on their off tour day.
Right.
I get touring Milwaukee and Chicago. And
we're right in between there, yeah.
But if they have an off day, they'll come and play for an hour and a half and pick up some Bitcoin. And so that's basically how I got them. So they're in that. This is another year, a different year later, but we're in that same RV bus. The whole band is in there. Kantner's in there. Balin's in there. And at the time, our Cornfest, the president, the entire, not just, I was in charge of the music, but the person in charge of the entire Cornfest was a woman a little bit older than me. She grew up with the Starship, and she's like, Dave, you got to take me in there. I got to meet these guys. You got to let me in there. She's the boss. She runs the whole festival. I'm like, no problem. We'll get you in there. I got her by my side. I open up the door to walk in to talk to Starship. They're all in there smoking weed. And I'm bringing in the president of the Cornfest. And it's a cloudy room. I'm like, oh, boy. What a great...
No, come on, name drop. Can you say who that was? Who was it?
It was Ellen Rogers.
Ellen Rogers. Oh, I know Ellen Rogers.
We know Ellen.
Now, what was it like with the big bands, especially with the big bands, when they come to town, they get to play at 3 o'clock? Do they come in right before that, or do they stay the night?
No, they actually come in early in the morning, because a lot of times some of these bigger bands like 38 Special, Eddie Money, they come in early. They set up their equipment off to the side so that my stage crew, all he has to do is pick up the entire thing and put it up on the stage.
Okay.
As opposed to putting a drum kit together and all of that.
But some of the big names hang out in the Cal like the night before?
Oh yeah, we would. They would always request a room. As a matter of fact, that's one thing. At that time, again, back in the late 80s, early 90s, DeKalb didn't have a lot for hotel rooms.
Now, where did you send them?
I mean, well, the only thing I could do was I sent them to what was at that time the Baymont, which was kind of out by Fatty's Pub and Grill out there.
Baymont in a suite,
and they agreed to trade me some rooms for getting their logo on the sound stage. So that afternoon when Paul Kantner comes backstage area and I walk up to him and I introduce myself. I'm the producer of the show today. Nice to meet you and everything. He goes, oh, so you're the guy I have to thank for these lovely hotel rooms. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I said, I got you the best ones available. That's all we have out here. But he was none too happy that he was like in a motel as opposed to the Four Seasons or something.
Now, Blue Oyster Cult, I see also played here, which I didn't realize that.
Another great story. Yeah, another great story with them was, for whatever reason, right next to the stage, the radio station had scaffolding set up where we broadcast from on the top of the scaffolding. So we were up even higher than the stage itself from our vantage point on the radio booth there. And when Blue Oyster Cult started playing, for some reason, they used to sell in the beer garden what they called growlers, which was like a bucket of beer that had little plastic tops on them.
Okay.
And they were called growlers, and everyone was buying growlers. Well, for some reason, someone during one of the Blue Oyster Cult songs started throwing the growler lids like frisbees up in the air. Within 5 minutes, thousands of these growler lids are flipping up in the air as far as your eye
just the
can
lids.
see.
I was afraid
Just
the buckets
lids.
were going.
No,
Okay.
just the lids. And to look out over the crowd, we must have had about 5,000 people in the crowd. To watch 3,000 of them throw in these lids, it was one of the most visually amazing things I've ever seen at Cornfest. So,
Wow.
I guess the crowd was into them.
Now, did you start video recording back in the day?
No, unfortunately, back in my time, there wasn't really a whole lot of video going on.
People weren't pulling their phones out then, no.
Well, and I'll tell you, when I quit in 2004, and I handed it over to my right-hand man, Sean Lowe. And Sean did a great job. He moved the stage over kitty corner to Second and Locust by the candy store, the confectionery.
Yeah.
And that's where it's been ever since.
That's a great location.
But now, they talked to the city council and found a way to go later into the evening until 10 o'clock at night. So then the whole aspect of new lighting came in. I never had to deal with any lights because we were done by 6 o'clock.
Right.
So he came in now, and now they're on at light, and there's a big light show to go with it. And then he brought in huge video screens and a camera. And so
the laser
people
show,
could
yeah, boy.
see the show on the video screen. So he's done a remarkable job of taking what I've done and just extrapolating on it and making it entertainment-wise so much better than it ever was.
Now, personally, do you have a lot of pictures of you with some of these stars?
Oh yeah, I got quite a few of them. As a matter of fact, somewhere in here, I don't even realize I brought it, but there's Eddie Money on the stage.
I was just going to ask you about Eddie Money, okay?
There's
Wow.
So yeah, no, I've got pictures of all of them. Me and Marty Balin and Paul Kantner and John Kay.
So, but somebody like Eddie Money, he's not here like, oh, I'm playing this little podunk town, this little festival.
Well, again, it was one of those situations where he was going from point A to point B, and we were in between point A and point B. So he thought, what the heck? I'll stop. Yeah, I don't remember what I paid him, but these guys were making probably. Hey, that's the other thing too I wanted to mention is I managed to get a lot of these big bands, these national acts, during the late 80s and 90s. They were popular in the 70s, and then when they weren't popular anymore, they kind of faded into oblivion, and then all these bands started like getting all these county fair bookings and festival bookings, and now like, I can guarantee, I don't know for sure, but I guarantee you that I ended up paying more for the Starship than they ever made at Woodstock or Altamont or anywhere else they may have played in the 60s.
Yeah.
If they were lucky, they might have got $5,000 in the 60s to play. Now I'm paying $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. They didn't make that kind of money in their heyday.
Right.
It's only on the back end when people realize, hey, these are classic rockers, let's go see them, that they started making the big money, or bigger money, at least, than they did before. The most I ever paid for a band was my last year. I paid Joan Jett.
Oh, so you asked about Joan Jett.
And I paid her $25,000, and that was the most I ever paid any single act.
How much for her?
$25,000.
Wow.
And that was huge to me. Now
did she have to promise to play a certain amount of time or a
well,
certain amount of songs?
we have a contract that says you're going to perform for most of them were 90 minutes. It was like a 70-minute set plus a 20-minute encore or a 15-minute encore.
Okay.
So yeah, they had. As a matter of fact, there was a couple of times when I had Survivor there. Survivor played, and they were lollygagging. It was time for the show to start, and they were still in the bus. They didn't want to come out or anything. And so I went up to their man. It was about 15 minutes after their start time, and they hadn't come out of the bus yet. And I said to their manager, I said, if they're not on that stage in 5 minutes, I'm going to start deducting cash from what we're paying you guys, because you're making X amount of money per 15 minutes, and you've already blown through the first 15 minutes. So, boom. In 2 minutes, those guys were out of the bus and up onto the step. Once you told them you were going to keep their money, then they got serious.
When did they play? What was their big hit? I can blank on it right now.
Which one?
Who are you just talking about? The Survivor, right?
Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they save it at the beginning, or they play it at the beginning?
Oh, no, they play that at the end, yeah.
I always wonder.
They always play that.
Got the one really big hit,
Right.
And then I want to mention the Grassroots, because the Grassroots was huge. If you look at the Grassroots up, they had lots of hits.
Yeah.
So there's a band that probably did make a lot of money in the 60s, and you throw some money at them.
Exactly. A perfect example of that. Probably didn't make more than about $1,000 or $2,000 ever as a gig back in the 60s. Now they're making $10,000, $15,000 to show up for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
They can't say no to that, no matter how gray their hair turns.
Now, I also want to mention here some of the places that people used to play locally here. The House Cafe back in the day. They had the beginning acts there. Local garage punk bands, Noblium 102 and Davey Dynamite and the Stockyards. So we had little places around where people would play locally here.
Oh, yeah. No. Back in my time, back in the 80s and 90s, Otto's.
Yeah, well, Otto's is mentioned too.
Was the place where, like, all the big bands went to play if they're going to play a bar, club kind of a thing. I mean...
and O'Leary's Pub, they had some people playing there.
Yeah, right. I remember one time walking into Otto's, and it was in the middle of the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, and Warren Zevon was sitting in the back of the place eating like a little charcuterie board.
Wow.
Warren Zevon sitting there because he was playing that night. They had George Thorogood play there, and Snoop Dogg played there, a bunch of people.
Well, the House Cafe that night, they had Lester the Fink, the vocalist of Phantom Scars. Now, I'm working with a guy over at Hayes Gym right now who's a big punk rocker fan back in the day. Do you know these guys at all? Were they big, like Lester Fink and Phantom Scars?
I've never heard of them.
And then there was We'll Be Each Other's Mothers and the Wacky Keys also performing a dalliance of family-friendly music.
You've stumped me on that. And I was a little bit of a punk back in the day, too.
Or how about
I didn't recognize those.
Playing at Otto's was the Riverbilly Cousin Touchers. And frontman Pat Clapp there, when they played over at the O'Leary's at the time. But so the other areas here, they benefit by these bands.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Because they know that, again, I don't know nowadays how many people go to the Cornfest, but back in the 80s and 90s, it was not uncommon for Friday night through Sunday night to have over 100,000 people come into DeKalb for the festival. I don't know if they're still pulling 100,000, but back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, it was easily 100,000 for the weekend.
We were talking about how many years in the 25th anniversary. I'm wearing a shirt from 2002. But one of the artists that performed, I read where he said, well, those airport years don't count with the year they were at the airport. 2010, 2011, 38 Special played out the airport, Phil Vassar, and also Firehouse.
Lady Antebellum.
And Lady Antebellum.
And Travis Tritt played out.
So you had some big hitters out there at the airport.
Yeah, Sean was in charge of that.
Sean was,
yeah. So by the time it went to the airport, and the only reason it really went to the airport was because City of DeKalb was going to beautify the downtown area.
Yeah.
And was ripping up streets and sidewalks and businesses, so they couldn't do it downtown. So it moved out to the airport, and
now, you was a native. Did it take away? Because a lot of people thought that wasn't even Cornfest, being out there at the airport.
It was a different feel, certainly. For those of us that had been going to Cornfest for 20 years, all of a sudden it's like, wow, we're not in downtown anymore. I didn't necessarily think it was all that bad. I know some people didn't like it just because of the change.
Right.
But it went back downtown as soon as they got done with the beautification part. And, you can't really say those years don't count because I know those years, like I said, Travis Tritt and Lady Antebellum, those were, Sean got his act together getting those acts in. So.
Well, the Lady Antebellum, I remember they had a big hit right before. Right before they came here. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's part of it too. The hard thing when you're trying to book bands for city festivals is that you got to be able to figure out who's going to be popular. You start looking for these bands in December and January to play in August.
Right.
Everyone's getting booked and filled up, So it's just a matter of trying to find the right band at the right time. Hey, I'll give you an example of how I blew it one year and didn't make the right call. I'm not going to remember the guy's name. It was a country act. I had the choice of a guy named Clinton Gregory, who had a top 10 hits on the country chart at that time.
Okay.
I'm not a country western guy. I don't know anything really about it, but I'm in charge of hiring. So I had a choice of him or, I can't remember the gentleman's name. It turned into, like, a year or two later, he was one of the biggest country acts ever.
But you chose the guy with the top 10 hit. I can see it that way.
So, I mean, and everyone still, guys that know me say, hey, you got that fiddle player that had a hit and you let what's his name go by the wayside. And I'm like, well, how do I know?
Well, now, before we finish up and talk about this year's lineup, we got any more story? You got one more story for us? Because Dave's got all these brilliant posters. So cool that you saved all this.
Yeah. Well, I remember in one year, in 2001, we had the Smithereens playing.
Okay.
Smithereens were really good. The funny thing is that years later, I'm just scrolling through Facebook, and I see a post on Facebook that was written by the leader of the Smithereens, this guy named Pat Denizio. And he writes, for some reason, this Facebook post said something about how the band, the Smithereens, had an opportunity to go visit John Glenn, the astronaut, at his home in Ohio, and to go through a bunch of his personal stuff and everything. And they said in the post, it says, we didn't make it because we ended up playing some festival in DeKalb, Illinois that weekend. And I got such a kick out of
Didn't you mention the Cornfest? Some festival.
I'm like, oh my God, that was the weekend. They could have. So what was it, John Glenn or the DeKalb Cornfest? Take your pick.
You got so many cool posters. How many have you framed? You got some framed?
I don't have any of these framed.
Oh, really?
As a matter of fact, as you can see some of these real early ones here.
Yeah, the black
I
and white
like the original.
We'll have to tell the show.
Here, there's the original paste of
my gosh.
Of what would turn into a poster.
1988 Cornfest.
Yeah. And that had Little Ed and the Blues Imperials. Now, this band, the Tammy Show, not too many people, they were signed to Chrysalis Records at that time. And their drummer, I can't remember if he was the drummer or the manager, but he played for Blondie.
Oh, really?
Band Blondie,
Wow.
Debbie Harry.
Yeah.
He was in that band, and he was managing Tammy Show. So they had just signed to Chrysalis Records. So I said, yeah, bring them in. Let's get them in there. We were fronted by two attractive blonde women and the rest of the band.
Look at those outfits, boy. You're talking about 80s, man.
Oh, yeah.
I wish you could see the pictures.
The big hair and the ratted up hair. Go ahead.
What else? You got something else?
Well, no, I'm just saying, you were talking about the grassroots. Here's another funny story about the grassroots. So I forget the guy's name, the leader of it, Rob something. Anyway, ultimately, he tried to sue the DeKalb Cornfest.
Oh, my God.
Because, now, he was an older guy, even at the time when he was playing in Cornfest, but for some reason, he kind of wanted to, jump off the stage into the crowd. And he broke his ankle or his foot or something, and he tried to come back onto the Cornfest committee and have us pay for all of his medical bills. And we said, look, we didn't tell you to jump off that stage. You're an old man for that. You jumped off the stage? What did you expect? So he wasn't successful in doing
trouble with that, yeah.
But he was very successful in winning the crowd over with all those hits. And you're right, Grassroots had a ton of hits.
Oh, they did. Well, I'd see them in a heartbeat.
We had local bands like JP and the Cats.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Myers.
And the JP and the Cats. They were
JP
huge.
and the Cats. Here's a weird,
Real nice guy.
here's
Johnny
a little
right there.
trivia for you.
Johnny and the Boomers, I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, well, JP and the Cat, they were similar.
Oh, yeah,
They
okay.
were kind of a 50s review kind of a thing.
Right.
The drummer for JP and the Cats, I forget his first name, but his last name was Chamberlain, ended up being the drummer for the Smashing Pumpkins in their heyday.
Is that right?
Yeah. He left JP and the Cats, and next thing you know, he's the drummer for the Smashing Pumpkins.
Ron Modell, if you know Ron, who taught over at NIU for years.
the jazz guy, right?
When we did a little tribute to him, I didn't realize he played in the Phil Collins band. He was, I realized Phil had that
He did?
wall of sound with the horns. Yeah, he was in the Phil Collins band. So how cool is that?
Oh, my goodness.
But I love the names of some of these bands. It's so much fun to go back and.
Yeah, we got, I'm looking at weird names here. Here's a band called Funk House. There's Wax Lips, the All Night Newsboys, Tony Boyd Quintet, Electric Cowboy, Kenning and McCoy, Frankie and the White Boys, big guitars from... Oh, this was a great band. Dick Holiday and the Bamboo Gang.
Oh, there you go.
They were a lot of fun. They were like a big party band. So, yeah, again, we had Deluxury.
Well, my favorite is the River Billy Cousin Touchers. And I don't think you do much better.
It was before my time.
I hope so. But now let's talk about this year. Now, again, some big names. So Friday night, you got Leroy Wynn, Rip Lock, and Seventh Heaven. I know Seventh Heaven's been around a while.
Yeah, Seventh Heaven is the favorite. Yeah, everyone loves them, and they always pack the place in on Friday night.
And then Saturday, Austin Hopkins. So they start at noon. So you'd be done at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, we used to. Well, you know what? Let me think. Yeah, on Sunday we were done at 6.
Okay.
On Saturday, I think the last band started at 6, so we were done by 7:30 on
Really?
Saturday
Okay.
night.
All right.
But we were always done while it was still light out. It wasn't dark yet.
Wow. So Saturday, Austin Hopkins at noon, Interstate 90s. I love some of these names. In Punktish. They played at...
Functious, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, is that 90s?
I think so.
Yeah, because
They played The Taste of DeKalb by
Yeah.
Whites of Rotarian, and they had them down
I
there.
can't remember who the bands are. I know one of those in that Infunctious is Rob Bass, who had a lot of big club hits and stuff in the 90s. I think a band called Color Me Bad.
Yeah, that's
D's, I think.
Oh yeah, well yeah. So it's gonna be at 9:30. It's gonna be a tribute to the '90s. Color Me Bad, Rob Bass, and Young MC.
Yeah,
Now these
so
aren't
those guys,
covers, right? These are the real.
no, these are the real guys.
Yeah.
That's Rob Bass is Rob Bass. He's going to be there, and Young MC. Those are huge, funky rapper kind of guys.
And like you said, back in the '90s, they might not have made the money that they'll make here now because
Right.
they're probably not getting a lot of offers right now.
Right.
That's great. So that's not a bad little headline. Then Sunday, Mark Harrison, the Styx Acoustics. Now I'm assuming that's Styx music, acoustic music.
I guess.
I'd be all over that. And then the big finish now, Taylorville, an unofficial tribute to Taylor
to
Swift.
Taylor Swift, yeah.
Now that'll be very popular. You know that. It's like,
Well, but you know what? All the people with 7-year-old, 8, 9-year-old girls, they'll be down there.
that's what I mean. It'll pack the place.
Yeah, they'll all be down there. And that's the weird thing too, a little bit as we grow older now and we get away from the 80s and 90s and we're full blown into the 2000s here, is that, it used to be where you could get these bigger national acts and not have to pay a fortune to get them. Nowadays, they've wised up and realized that the second go around for some of these bands, it's the way to... That's the way to make the money.
Yeah.
Back, I tried for so long to get Cheap Trick to play. I just thought how unnatural it would be.
Perfect.
It would have been. They didn't even have to leave. They could go back home to Rockford when they were done.
Didn't that appeal to them? I thought that would appeal.
They wanted. This is at the time. Again, remember I told you the most I ever paid was $25,000. They were asking $60,000.
Oh my God!
And this is back in like 95, 94, somewhere around there. They wanted $60,000, and there was no way I could come up with that.
Wow.
But I thought that was one band I probably should have got, but couldn't figure out how to
justify
swing it.
that. I know.
But yeah, there's a few stories like that, the ones that got away. But
So what would you say was your biggest coup? Jefferson Starship? I would say that would be a pretty one. Or
the Starship was big.
Joan Jett, yeah.
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf.
And again, for me, personally, Leon Russell. I mean, Leon Russell was one of the biggest rocks. He played with George Harrison at a concert for Bangladesh, the film and the concert. He had tons of top 40 hits, Tightrope, A Song for You, and nobody came out to see Leon. I was really depressed. He played all the songs I grew up as a kid.
And it didn't go big.
And a very small crowd. I was very disappointed with the crowd. I just think most people didn't know who Leon Russell was, I certainly did, and thought it'd be a good choice.
How about you now? There's a lot of pictures of bands and stuff. How about you now? You got a lot of pictures of you up on stage introducing the act. And how would you do that?
Occasionally, yeah, I've got some.
Would you milk it, or would you just say, "Here's Joan Jett"?
Oh no! Well, they would sometimes the managers would say, "Here's what we want you to say when you intro the band." So they would give you a little 4-line script. If they had to plug whoever might be a sponsor for them on a national tour, So they would sometimes supply me with what I had to say. But otherwise, no, it was just kind of short and sweet. We always had tremendous crowds,
And your last year was what now?
In 04.
04, okay. Did you know that then? Did you do a little send-off that you realized that was your last hurrah?
Yeah, I might have. I don't really recall. I don't really remember. I just remember my last act for my entire career on this was Joan Jett. And
not a bad way to finish.
Well, I'll tell you, the place was packed. People as far as the eye could see. Same like that for Eddie Money, too. As a matter of fact, during Eddie Money's set, I went over across the street to the bank just outside the beer garden there, and I went all the way up to the 4th floor of the building.
Did you, right?
And I looked down over the crowd and took some pictures, and the crowd was as far as, again, your eyes could see. It was a huge crowd for Eddie Money, Joan Jett, the Starship, Blue Oyster Cult. All of those three. I mean, you couldn't fit another person in those areas.
And those people in those new apartment buildings now, boy, they got the prime location there.
Yeah, right. They can look right over it. Like the rooftops in Wrigley. They don't have to pay for the games. They can just watch.
Well, Dave, I can't thank you enough for coming in and talking about this because, again, it's only in hindsight. I came into town in 2001, and I didn't realize the great music we had before that. And then currently, and then right up to now with some big names coming into town here. So, do you miss it at all? You miss the organizing music?
I miss the aspect of organizing it all. I miss having my crew, working with my crew, and having them really prop me up. My hardest part of my job was actually finding the bands and finding the right amount of money to pay these bands.
Yeah.
Once we got them on contract, then it was my stage crew. I had 15, 20 people on my stage crew, year after year after year, doing a tremendous job of loading out these big act equipments and getting them all set and ready to go.
It really is amazing. And did you ever already not show up, or was late? You said that one you had to rush on stage.
Yeah, one, and I don't recall who it was, but one group didn't show up at all.
Oh, really?
And it was the middle of the afternoon. It was probably a local band or something, but there was just one time slot in all my years where we didn't have any music to put in there.
Well, I tell you, if you look back at the history, then if you look right there at 1986, when the big acts really started to come here, it's pretty amazing what you're able to accomplish during that time.
Well, we had a great time doing it, and I'm just, it was some of the best times of my life.
Oh, there you go. Well, let's leave it at that. Dave Bavido has been our guest here. Again, this has been TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 19, and we thank Dave for joining us. TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zyman, your State Farm insurance agent. Scott can help you save money bundling your home and auto insurance. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zyman and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. For delivery or pickup, call 815-758-8116 or go to pizzavilla.com. My Insurance Guys in Sycamore, family owned, local, reliable. My Insurance Guys cover Medicare to auto and everything in between. Call us in Sycamore at 815-899-0950. My Insurance Guy, business, auto, home, life, and health at myinsurancegyguy.com. And Elder Care Services of DeKalb County, safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay at home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org.